Hi, welcome back. I'm Gordon Van Fleet, and today I'm going to do a little shorter video. The gentleman that shoots this video, Tyler, brought in this door from his kitchen, and this door had cracked right here and here. It has a little damage on the front, and we're just going to demonstrate if you have doors that are broken in your kitchen that you don't need a new door. We'll just fix this door and make it so that it's as good as new in terms of function. Also, I'm going to demonstrate some finishing techniques. If you have damage in the surface of a cabinet or the back of a cabinet, a gouge, a crack, some other damage, a couple of methods for repairing that damage. And that's what we're going to do today in these videos. Okay, so I'm using end cutting pliers to grab the little pin here. This pin is an assembly aid. Normally when they clamp this together in the factory, they'll clamp this together in a machine, and then they'll put a pin in each of the four joints to hold it together while the glue dries. So I just want to get that pin out because it's going to impede our ability to glue and clamp it together. So I grab it tightly and then I just twist to the side, and the rolling motion of the pliers, it's rounded on the back, will help pull it out without damaging the panel. And then here's the one on the other corner. A simple rolling motion, and we'll grab it a little lower, and we got that one out too. Here we have some different glues that we could use for the repair. This is essentially super glue. You can buy it in the dollar store or regular store. I just buy it in a bigger amount. So this would be put in the joint, you'd hold it together, and then this is an activator. And the activator is sprayed over the joint and it's dry in about 10 seconds. I'm not going to use that today because it's a little more expensive and maybe it's not as easy as what you have laying around. Another glue that could be used are like your white Elmer's glue. A little stronger is a yellow Elmer's glue, now stronger formula. It's for interiors, so this is not waterproof. At best it's water resistant and needs to be clamped for about 30 minutes. If you really want a superior job, you could get something like Titebond 3. Titebond 3, they come in 1, 2, and 3, but Titebond 3 is actually waterproof. If you were building a boat, you could use this material. So all of them are strong enough to hold the door together for normal purposes. The yellow glue, this certainly stronger than what was used in the factory. They probably used a white Elmer's type glue. There's different methods once you have the glue you're going to use to clamp the door together. This is a relatively inexpensive one. These are pipe clamps. You simply get a pipe at your local home center. This is a 3/4 type, and then these clamps are sold to make clamps really any length you want. So if you're using this type of a clamp, normally you want to have a block front and back just to protect your door edges from getting crushed. And then once you have your door and you've put the glue on it and put it together, you would set it down in the clamp like this and get it aligned, and then simply tighten the screws, which are going to clamp the door together. So you push it and keep it flush front and back. You clamp one side, then clamp the other side. In doing this, you're going to have glue squeezing out in this area. You clean it off with some water and make sure it's dry, or at least not soaking wet. Just get the glue off, it's water soluble. And the same thing on the back, and you just wait a half an hour or an hour in the clamps, and then you can take it out and continue with your cleanup or whatever's necessary. Another method that I'll show you is we're going to attach these pieces of wood to a bench, and then we're going to drive wedges in here, which will clamp it together without the need of the bar clamps. We're going to use some screws. We'll put a screw here and here, and then this is the part that we're going to put the wedges in, and so we'll space it out an appropriate distance for these wedges, and we'll put screws in here to hold this. And what we'll have is a piece of wood like in this manner, and this manner with the fat side in and the narrow side out. And then we'll use the wedge, again, narrow side in, and then we'll just tap this in, and we'll do the same thing over here, tapping this in, and that'll create side pressure to clamp it together. These are simple little shim shingles that, again, are at Home Depot, very inexpensive. They're just tapered, and they make great wedges for this purpose. If you had a saw at home or some other type of wedge, anything that you can use just to wedge that joint will work. Now over here, let me just situate the wedges. I'm going to get some paper towel, and I'm just going to lay paper towel between the bench and this joint. That way, when the glue dries, we won't glue it to the bench, and when we take it off, we can wet the paper towel and clean that side off. All right, I'm just going to show an added thing. Here, you can see this very narrow piece of wood that split off and stayed in there. So we're going to glue that also. We're just going to put a little bit of glue here and draw that up nice and tight. So here we put glue just in the area of the joint. You don't need too much. A little bit on the surface there, a little bit down here, a little bit on the edge there, and then I'm just running a little bit along where that sliver of wood came off. Okay. Put that together. I'm going to tap this together just a little bit at either end. Now we'll lay the door down with the paper underneath the joints. Put my wedges in. Again, fat side in. And here we tap in the wedge. That's pretty good. And then we'll tap in the wedge here. Then we'll use a little bit of water. It's my damp rag, just to clean up that excess glue in the corners. And then I have these spring clamps, but you can see this is pretty tight right here. But I'm going to see if I can get this little spring clamp in there. And you can see the pressure it puts on there just to tighten that up. And I'm actually going to put one more right here. I can get it. And that's good. All right, and now we'll wait about a half an hour, and then we'll come back and take those clamps off. Okay, so here we have a door panel. I'm going to show a couple different kinds of damage. There's a little dust on it, but on this edge here, the finish has been worn off. If you have a door that's used a lot, you put your hand on there or clean it a lot, you know, after a number of years, you could wear the finish off the corners. So we'll show how to repair that. Also here in the middle, we just hit this with a hammer, but again, your door could have something bang into it and leave some imperfections like this, and we'll show a little repair for that area. On this door, we have a corner here that's bruised a little bit. We'll just show how to touch that up. And then here, I'm showing kind of a scratch in the door, and we'll touch that up. And again, all of these things with age, natural wood products, etc., none of this is going to be invisible. This damage is actually, this is a veneered panel in the center, and we've gone through the veneer. The veneer is missing. So we're just going to color it in to kind of mimic the surrounding area. You know, this is not sanding the doors down completely and refinishing them, you know, to get like a brand new appearance. It's just something you can do in your house when you have these little bruises and imperfections to keep your kitchen tuned up and looking good over the years. Okay, I'm showing a few things that we have here to repair this. I'm just going to use these little touch-up markers that you can buy at Home Depot. Here's a professional one made by Mohawk, You could find this online through Amazon or just Google Mohawk. And there's several brands, but they make hundreds of colors, or probably $4 or $5 per marker. Here's one I found at Home Depot or Lowe's. This might have cost $10 maybe for the set. And you see there's a variety of colors here. So I think we're going to try to touch this up using these colors because it's readily available, and it's a nice selection. Maybe you have some other furniture in your home to touch up. So I'm just looking at the tone of this door, and I see that this color is perhaps the closest, but I'll take out a couple of the other ones as well. It's not really red, but it is sort of in this orange color. So let's just see what this color does. Now when you put it on, it'll be dark, but you always rub this off with your finger when you're done. So here I'm putting it on. You can see it's quite orange, more than we want. So let's try this color. I'm guessing this is going to be a little yellower, but let's just see what this accomplishes on there. All right, now this is going to be a darker color. Again, be aware that we're going to rub this off and use a little polish on it afterwards. So this color brings in more of a brown tone, and we'll put some there as well. Okay, and I'm going to stop right there, but I'm going to get a little Johnson's paste wax, and then we'll rub some of that on there, and we'll see if that blends in it a little bit more. So here's some paste wax that we're using. Minwax is one brand that's readily available. I think in the grocery store you might find Johnson's, but any type of clear paste wax is a very valuable product to have in your home to maintain and repair your furniture. So I use very fine steel wool. Not really going to make use of this other than to apply it, but we're going to put a little bit of paste wax on there, and then I'm going to get a paper towel to clean that off. Now we polish it with a little bit of paper towel, and I'd say that's okay. You got a nice sheen on there because of the wax, and a little bit of color back in that place. Okay, moving on to this central area, I can see and feel that this is raised up a little bit. So the first thing I want to do is flatten that down a bit. I'm going to use a pocket knife, but you don't want to create more damage. You want to try to minimize the damaged area. So I'm just carefully taking off a few high spots here. Now we have the dents, or there's little depressions in there. So I'm going to use some wax pencils and heat to fill in those damaged areas and smooth that out and see what kind of a result we get from doing that. And then I may use also some markers to touch it up a little bit, and then finally some wax. So, okay, for this repair I'm using Mohawk fill sticks. These basically are crayons. This is a hard wax, which we're going to use a heat gun to melt this. You could use a hair dryer, you could use a match actually just to drip it in there, or a lighter. So here I have a color that's in a similar tone to the base, and I'm going to start with this. So here's my heat gun, and this will go pretty rapidly. I'm going to rub some into those depressions. I'm going to use a paper towel and some mineral spirits. You can see right here, very common product. Again, always read the safety instructions. This is a combustible product, so you need to dispose of your rags carefully so that you don't cause a fire. And the mineral spirits won't hurt most finishes. Again, you can always test the small area on the back or edge of your door. So that's taken care of a good part of it. We filled it in, it's basically flush. Probably already looks better. Then I think we'll use these repair markers again to get a little bit closer. So I'm going to start with the darker one. And now I'm looking at the lines in the grain of the wood. So I see kind of a dark line here, and there's a little bit of a light spot there. So I'm just rubbing that in a little bit. And I can see it's a little darker than I want. So I'm going to go to a little bit lighter color. See if that ends up being better for me. Actually, I think I'm going to use a pencil. You see this pencil here? I'm going to just hit those little light spots. I'm going to say that's about as good as we're going to do for this. So now we're going to repair this corner and the back of the door here, this scratch. Now, a lot of kitchen cabinet companies have touch-up kits that you have some wax pencil and then basically a touch-up marker, but it's actually paint in a marker form. Now, I don't have from this brand of cabinet a touch-up kit. I do from another company. So this white might not be exactly the same, but frankly, wax is not what they used on the door. It wouldn't be exactly the same no matter what company you got it from. So this is pretty close. I think you could see the color here, pretty close. And we're gonna use that for the repair. Again, when you repair like this with the wax pencil or the touch-up paint, it's never perfect like from the factory. It's just an improvement over what you had previously. And there you can see that it's melted on the edge, a little softer, and that'll just ease putting it into the damaged area. Okay, so we've tried this wax stick here, and it's not working well. And the reason is this is such a shallow scratch that the wax is getting pulled right out of the scratch instead of staying where it belongs. So I think we're going to use this touch-up paint, and we're going to fill that in a little thicker. This dries pretty quickly because it's got a volatile solvent as a base, and then we'll try to level out that touch-up a little bit to get it to be a good appearance. So I'm just going to clean this out. So here's this touch-up pencil that has paint in it, and you need to get the paint to start coming out. All right, that's better. And so we just kind of lay it on the top there. This is a little bit yellower paint. Okay. We'll let that dry. I'm also going to put some on this outside corner that was damaged. Again, just touching it on the little damaged, scuffed area. Okay, we'll come back to that in a little bit. While repairing this door, you might recall we used these spring clamps. And a cautionary note, again, I'm leaving this on video because I want to show you what happens in real life. These inadvertently came off, got knocked off, whatever, and caused this damage across the face of the door, which now we're going to repair. In this case, we have a spray stain made by Mohawk. It's called New Reddish Maple. Again, this company makes hundreds of colors, and so we use this to spray on this scrap piece of oak, and it's a similar tone. And so we're going to sand this out a little bit of filler, a little bit of sanding, and then we're gonna spray this finish in there to blend it in, and we may use another color too, and then use maybe some touch-up wax or other colors just to blend in this grain. And after that, we're gonna put a little top coat on it to mimic the sheen with a little wax to get this to blend in. Okay, I'm starting off with 120 grit sandpaper on this edge. We don't want to make a giant area, but we do want to sand it such that your eye is not drawn to where we had the big scratches. So now I'm looking in here on this surface. Here we have a little wood putty, which is in a complementary color. And we're using that just where I see a little bit of damage. Okay, with a putty knife, we're just trying to draw that pretty close to flat. Okay, we'll let that dry for a few minutes, and then we'll come back and sand these areas again. This area has dried a little bit, and I actually found a little closer white pencil. So you could still see the scratch, and there's going to need several coats of this to fill it into the depth we need. So here I'm using a little bit of the lacquer thinner typed product, and you can see how rapidly that just took the material off of the surface. And then this was a different company's white, which just happens to be a little bit closer to this color, not so yellow. Okay, let that dry. And now we'll try to dab this in so that it flows into and fills this crack area. Again, we'll let that dry. It'll probably shrink back into the crack and might need a third coat. So here I'm just using some lacquer products. There's all kinds of clear products you can get at Home Depot from Krylon or some of the other spray. Just look for a clear spray in a sheen that is similar to what you want. This is pretty flat, but again, when it's washed and cleaned and waxed, it'll brighten up a little bit. You can see the color that we took off. That's just where we had some overspray on this panel in here a little bit, but I think as far as the rail, it's blended in pretty well. We're going to put a little bit more of the lacquer in this area. So I'll spray a little bit here. I think when we get a little bit of wax, you know, when we have an old finish on oak, oak is a very grainy, porous wood, and some of these dark streaks have basically dirt in them or wax from years of use. This we just sanded, so it doesn't have any of that. And I think if we take kind of like a dirty rag and we wax this, we'll force a little bit of dirt into the pores of the wood, and it'll come a little closer to mimicking what we have over here. So I'm hoping that we can darken this up a little bit just through that waxing process. So here I'm gonna do a little bit of blending in just with wax and the steel wool. And the steel wool also will take off a little bit of those bumps that we feel from the sawdust. And again, because we just sprayed a limited area, there's a little bit of overspray, which will feel a little bit rough to the touch. And all of that goes away by using a little bit of wax with steel wool. All right, it's been about an hour or so in the clamps here. We did our touch up on this damage, and now we're gonna take it out of the clamps. We're gonna treat it gently because it should dry for about 24 hours, but it should be set up enough that we can take it apart and clean up the back side. So. Go. And it didn't stick to the bench because we used this paper, and then the paper just peels off the back even if there's glue. Then we're going to use a damp rag just to, it'll loosen up a little bit of glue because it's not cured yet. There we go. Same thing here. We'll use it on that edge. And here we have the finished door. And probably should wait a day, and then it could be put back on the cabinet and should last for a long time. We had a short video today on repairing this cabinet door and a few touch-ups on some other cabinet doors. Again, these are little repairs you can make at home. Sometimes it's better than calling a professional, and you can save some money. All right, thanks again for watching this YouTube video. As always, if you hit the subscribe and hit the notification bell, you'll be alerted when we have new videos. We try to do these once a week to show you different ways to facilitate repairs in your kitchen, whether you hire a professional or do it yourself. And also we highlight design videos and new trends in the kitchen industry. Thanks so much for coming. Have a great day.